So, something interesting I realized today and was blown away is that God will get other humans, or let's say a single, because He'll execute divine judgment on a nation, but He'll even do it to one person. Not for just sinning, not anything. This is somebody, He's already tested their heart and mind. He knows they are completely up to wickedness. And He says in the Bible, He would call them evildoers, false prophets. You will purge them from your midst. So when God says He will bring swift destruction to them, He means it. So just think. This is why it was very important to test the spirits, and the only way you can test the spirits, well, is most especially to seek God. So let's take this last assassination, okay? And of course, this is something nobody likes to talk about but God wants it talked about because He wants biblical maturity. So that people understand not to be afraid of Him, not unless you're an evildoer, but, like through and through. But so that you understand how active a role He takes in this world. And that when it says, I will bring swift destruction to the evildoers, definitely to false prophets, He means it. So some of the ways you will know a false prophet, because there's 12 of them, like throughout the Old and New Testament. One is you have to test the spirit, so you have to seek God. You have to know the shepherd's voice. Okay, but so that's one way you will know. The other is that you should know they are not sent by God. So these are all this is what makes them false. If they don't speak the truth, if they are greedy and deal falsely, if they teach you to follow other gods. I'm going to come back to that one. If they prophesy for money, if they prophesy for peace. I mean, that shouldn't, you may not like God, but God makes it clear that there's a time for war and there's a time for peace. That sometimes war is necessary. This one was a mind blower. If all men speak well of them, if all men speak well of them, they're false. If they teach you to follow other gods. So for that last assassination, 2 months to the day prior to that happening, he was on his show encouraging Christians to venerate Mary. And I said God's not going to overlook it. Maybe there's a reason Pope Leo there hasn't been encouraging that, huh? That's the beast, though. God will deal with that at the end. So this is what was mind-blowing to me, because, and of course this world doesn't want you to talk or think, this world's trained everybody is, we don't know why God does those things. No, He wants you to know. He wants you to say, God, why would you intervene so many times for Trump, but you didn't for this holy man that everybody thinks is holy, right? Because he wasn't. I said even before it happened, he was up to no good. I didn't want to do videos after it happened because nobody wants to see that happen. But here's what you need to know. God does it in front of you. Mm-hmm. It's in Jeremiah. Not because He wants to hurt you, but really more because He wants you to know, no, I'm looking out for you. You could continue to think that you know better than God, but that's not smart, okay? And does that mean you're supposed to think every execution is just? No. But with people that are big figures, okay, you should be seeking God, especially on the political or religious stage. You should be seeking God's wisdom. And especially because God will let you know false. I want you to start speaking up about them. I did like 6 videos about him. And I did about JFK too, since doing videos. That's another one. Because here's the thing, God will do it anonymously many times too. Yeah, don't you think it's weird? Like they can so quickly this day and age find the killer for things, but not with JFK, because God doesn't want it. Not so this world doesn't want you to know the truth. But look, there's not just a curse. Maybe there's a curse on that family, but it's their choices. When you're just up to pure wickedness in everything you do, you should be worried about what God's going to do, especially if you're twisting the Bible. These stupid people. It's one thing to get, you're trying to share, your thoughts or teaching, your interpretations. God wants that because he likes that debate with people. He's good with all that. He didn't want everybody on the same page with it all, even though everybody says, oh, it's about unity. No, but he wanted people engaging, not just, oh, let's mindlessly believe whatever the Pope says and everybody else. No, he wanted you to know him here. So you may end up interpreting something, and even though this world will tell you, oh, that's wrong, the Bible is what God brought us. No, he brought you the Spirit in here. They just don't want to follow it. But he says that he will slay them before your eyes, the evildoers, so that you know how much he intervenes. That's the reason he does it, not because he's trying to hurt you. But how is this world going to know this? This world has put this most recent one on a pedestal. But they did it with this one too. They still do it with this one. It's ridiculous. And yet it wasn't just him. It was many of his family members. Because that family, is like the family, sons of perdition. You're never going to know who did it. Not because, it doesn't matter. Even if you think the government's withholding it. No, God is the sovereign judge overall. He doesn't need to wait for our court system. He can execute it. That's what was mind-blowing to me. And I realized, it's not because he's trying to scare people. The beginning of wisdom is to fear the Lord, but he wouldn't just take somebody out for sinning. This is somebody, he's tested their heart. He realizes there is no chance there. They've got to go. They've got to be purged from society or they will destroy society. Example. God can use one person as his agent to execute judgment on an evildoer, but he still holds that person accountable for their actions, including how faithfully they obey his instructions and whether they exceed their mandate. So it's very specified. This means that while God sovereignly directs human agents to carry out justice, these agents do not act independently or without moral responsibility. If they act obediently and within God's will, they are blessed or vindicated. However, if they act with disobedience, pride, or cruelty beyond God's command, that's key there, cruelty but beyond God's command, they themselves face consequences. This preserves the holiness and righteousness of God while respecting human accountability in his divine plan. So he still holds them accountable for moral choices if they exceed what he's given them to do. Agents who faithfully execute divine commands receive divine approval and protection. It's in Numbers. And he often does execute judgment directly without involving earthly courts. Yet he will not let anybody do anything to this just man. That's how you know he's just. Because God will not let this wicked world do anything to him. And what does this world do? They don't give him the credit he deserves. Instead, they want to put idols and put on big saint platforms all the people that are evildoers that God purged from our midst.